why she knows what she does to me. I would give her everything and more. Bring me to my knees, sacrifice me, make me bleed, 'cause there's nothing I ever wanted more. She's got a face to die for.
She is helping immigrant professionals and emerging leaders overcome their cultural and communication barriers so that they can show up with confidence, they can show up with clarity and authenticity. An immigrant herself, she envisions a world where accents are celebrated. She now hosts a podcast, Thoughts Between Shots, and in addition to her storytelling work, Nammy is a performer and a Bollywood dancer. She's done some NBA halftime shows. Let's welcome Nammy Sirur to the stage to talk about the intersection of creativity and soft.
Ben, you're a natural. I could see you up there at an NBA halftime show. Okay. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, a king and queen are forced to make a deal with a dragon to regain control of their kingdom. Now, the wily dragon, in return for ceding control of the kingdom, says, I will do it on one condition. If you marry your daughter to me. Now, the princess, upon learning that she is now betrothed to a dragon, is of course scared for her life. But then she remembers that there's a wise old woman who lives on the outskirts of town. So she goes to seek out her advice. And the wise old woman tells her, you know what? In addition to being wise, I'm also a contract specialist, and this contract is binding. You have to get married to the dragon, but do exactly as I say. So she asks her to wear 10 wedding gowns on her wedding day, and then she gives her a few more instructions, which our princess follows to a T. So the wedding day rolls around, they get married, and when it's time to consummate the wedding, the princess tells the dragon that, look, I'm ready to offer myself up to you, but as I remove layers of my wedding attire, you must do the same. You must also remove a layer. So he agrees. And she removes the first wedding gown. And then she watches as the dragon removes the outer layer of his scaly armor. But then, to his surprise, there's another wedding gown. And then another one, and on it goes. And as she removes each gown, he must claw off more of his layers until his form begins to shift and it starts to soften and become more tender. And finally, by the time she removes the 10th gown, he has completely transformed. He has removed the last vestiges of his dragon body and emerged, any guesses? A handsome prince! Yay! Cliched folktales for the win! So, what this tells us is that in order to get to inner freedom and creative freedom, we must remove our armor, our scaly armor, the layers that keep us stuck, in order to finally reveal those vulnerable, tender parts of ourselves and get to that soft, gooey center. Because armor protects, but also hard repels. It keeps us from really exploring, growth or connection. Softness, on the other hand, allows us to create and absorb and connect. And I've learned this through my own story because I've lived it. I was that dragon once upon a time. And then I've spent the last decade shedding layer after layer to get to that soft, gooey center. Now, spoiler alert, I'm Indian. And if you're at all familiar with South Asian culture, you know that we tend to be a fairly achievement-oriented community. And I was that ambitious little Indian kid when I was back in the motherland. And then I moved to the States when I was 12 and kind of lost my mojo for a bit. And I was surrounded, during my formative years, surrounded by what I lovingly call the League of Overachievers. Everyone around me was going to Ivy League schools, becoming doctors, lawyers, engineers, or all of the above in some cases. And I had zero idea of what I wanted to do with my life. So while my friends in high school were padding their resumes with, science camps and mathletes and all these things, you know what I was doing? not drugs. I wasn't that cool. But I had a VHS tape because I'm 41. And so I had a VHS tape where I would record every single Aaliyah, Missy Elliott, Sean Paul, and every Bollywood music video. And then I would spend hours in my basement perfecting and learning and practicing these dance routines. But being Indian, being a professional dancer was not in the cards. And so I had no idea what I wanted to be. And so I started asking around. And I started asking people I knew, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think I could do? And each time, consistently, I would get, well, you have people skills, and I guess you can write, and you can communicate fairly well. So I guess you have soft skills. And it was always said with this hint of pity. And what they were really saying was, you have soft skills as in soft as in weak, soft as in not marketable, soft as in bless your heart, you will figure it out, but you will not make money doing this. Because in my mind, the only way to make money and be successful was the hard skills, the quant skills, right? To do something STEM related. And so I believed them. And I forced myself to get an MBA in supply chain and went to work in big oil as a supply chain analyst. Yay, finally made it. I finally got into the league of overachievers. Do you have t-shirts? They didn't. But so finally, I should have been excited, right? This was my ticket. This was my chance to finally be successful. So what happened? 2 years later, I found myself sitting in my fancy shiny office, picking at my gross lean cuisine meal, miserable. I would sit and just browse the internet mindlessly, looking for answers, and I didn't even know what the questions were. So I had put on so much armor by now in my quest for success that I had become that dragon, and now I was stuck. Then one day, my mindless, directionless interweb scrolling finally paid off, because what the heavens parted and a TED talk fell into my lap. It was by the now infamous Priya Parker. Anyone know who that is? She's awesome. So back in 2014, I had no idea who she was, but she was a facilitator, and her TED Talk was called How to Quit Your Life and Reboot. I was spellbound. I could not look away, because she started with the words, most of us are doing our jobs out of fear. We're living these mechanical, mundane lives out of fear of not being cool enough, smart enough, rich enough, whatever enough. And I was transfixed, because she was talking to me. I was that person, me. And so I decided right then and there that I was done. I was done contorting myself into boxes I didn't fit into. I was done minimizing the things I thought I was good at, that I thought were weaknesses. Why not just try leading with them for once? I tried to be so many other people all these years. Let's just try to be me. Let's see what happens if I actually lean into my soft skills. And so I did exactly that. I quit my life and I rebooted. I handed in my 2 weeks notice. My parents, who are right here, probably thought I was insane. But this was how my journey of shedding those layers began. So over the next few months, I started to experiment, and I started to take on jobs in social media and community management and content writing, because like everyone said, I had people skills, creative skills, and communication skills. So I leaned hard into them. And then a few months later, I got a really interesting phone call. It was from my best friend, surprise, surprise, an engineer. And she had just gotten laid off from her oil and gas job. And she decided, I never want to go back to corporate either. Can we do something together? So we did the only logical thing. We started a YouTube channel about unemployment. Now, so many people around us, because this was 2016 and there was a big oil and gas downturn. So many people we knew were going into hiding because they would get laid off, and rather than tap into the power of community, they would go underground until they had something to celebrate. And we thought, what a shame, because this is when you should be out there talking to people. But what community, right? It didn't exist. And so we started it. We started a YouTube channel called the 9 to 5 Misfits. And then we started just telling our stories. We got really real and honest and vulnerable and our goofy selves and just talked about our journeys of unemployment. And soon enough, because I was starting to shed those layers and I was really feeling myself, my creative juices were flowing. We made 100 videos in a year and a half. And eventually, we built that tiny community around us. And what I learned from this first instance of shedding those first few layers was that softness wasn't a weakness. And my soft skills didn't make me less marketable. But I still had more layers to shed. So I told you we did those 100 videos in a year and a half. So eventually, people started to hire us to make videos for them. And soon enough, we started working with some some big wigs, like CEOs of tech companies or partners at consulting firms like Deloitte and PwC. And it was really interesting because I would be sort of the first point of contact often because I was in charge of most of the communication and all of the pre-production. So I had to instantly make a rapport and a connection with these really important people. And I would always start with, look, because we went into these really sort of intense consultations, and I would always tell them that, look, I need you to tell me your story. And a lot of these technical types would say, well, I don't really have a story. And I'd say, give me an hour, and I promise I will pull it out of you. And sure enough, after that 1 hour of me asking them questions and going deep, these super technical people would say things like, oh my God, that felt like a therapy session. Or one person who was convinced he didn't have a story, at the end realized that the whole reason he was in the line of work he was in was because he had followed in the footsteps of his uncle, whom he hugely admired. And so he told me, thank you for reminding me of why I do what I do. Now, I don't tell you this to impress you and tell you, like, look how great I am. Although if you think that, I won't fault you for it. But but it's because in my 20s, I would never have fathomed. I never felt these feelings about my work before. It was mind blowing. And in my 20s, I would have been so scared to even share an elevator with people of this caliber. And now I was sitting across from them, teaching them how to communicate more like me. What? So I was writing their stories. I was scripting out these stories for them. And then on shoot day, by which time we had built this amazing rapport and relationship, we'd have so much fun. And then I'd be prepping them on camera and I'd be giving them their lines. And invariably they'd say things like, God, Nammy, you're so good at this. Do you just want to switch clothes and say my lines for me? Or when we were doing retake after retake, they'd say, well, actually, no, how would you say this? Which was mind blowing because these were executives and Americans, no less, asking me, an accented Indian girl, to teach them how to speak more like me, which was this holy shit moment every time. And what that taught me was that it was because, see, back in the day, I would have looked at these people and said, look at that, Nammy. They're so successful and so accomplished and rich and all these things. And you're not even an iota of that. And I'd wonder if my accent would hold me back. And now, these people the whole reason I was in these rooms with these people was because of the skill set I had to bring that was completely different from theirs. And that was of value. So, again, shedding those layers taught me that. Now, once we ran that company, we ran it for about a good 7 years. And in 2024, it was time to close and move on to my next chapter. And this time, okay, I knew what my skills were. I had turned them into my superpower, which was awesome. But now this might surprise you. Making sales enablement videos for partners at Deloitte to sell more SaaS products wasn't really my higher calling. I felt like there was a bigger purpose that I was called to. Now, one of the things was, I moved from India to the States in 1996 at age 12. And faced just about the most potent culture shock ever. Because at the time, in the 90s, there wasn't much information about America, right? Or India, back and forth. The interwebs weren't a thing. So the only thing I really knew about America came from Archie comics and Jurassic Park. So moving from Bombay to Cleveland, none of that was an accurate representation of middle school life in suburban Cleveland, Ohio. So I was completely blindsided. I had zero idea of what to expect. And when I got here, now how many immigrants are in the audience? Yeah, my people. So you know this, and most of your immigrant friends will tell you that when you move to a new country, especially one that is so wildly different from yours, you tend to suddenly all the things you rely on and all the things you know to be true, your personality, your skills, your sense of self, vanish almost overnight. You spend all this time rebuilding and picking up the pieces. So I had no idea of that. And in those early days, all I wanted was a fairy godmother to take me by the hand, give me a blueprint, and say, here's how to America. And because I didn't have that, it took me about 20 years to figure it out, to finally feel like my former self and to finally like walk into a room like this and feel like, okay, I belong and I can hold my own and I can be confident. So now I wanted to be the fairy godmother that I never had. And speaking of fairy godmothers and fairy tales, let's bring it back. Let's rewind to where this all began with the folk tale of the princess and the dragon, right? Who was the real MVP in that story? The wise old woman. So now I she was amazing. She was the one who had the plan. She enabled the dragon through her suggestion of shedding his scales, didn't destroy him. She helped him liberate himself because he was willing to get soft and finally find his true self. So she was the ideas person. I wanted to now be that, the fairy godmother or the wise old woman, except the old part. I'm quite youthful. But I wanted to be that in this new phase of my career. So, yeah, whether it's the wise old woman, whether it's the fairy godmother, what I do now is exactly that. I work with immigrant professionals as a speaker, a communication coach, a corporate trainer to help them overcome those communication barriers and speak and show up with confidence and clarity and influence without losing their cultural identity or their accents. And here's the thing I've learned: softness is not weakness. It gives you the ability, because now that I've had all this time shedding my armor and learning how to get to my soft, gooey center, I'm able to now hold space for the people I work with to do the same. So softness is not weakness. It's the courage to be vulnerable, to lead with things that make you different, and to hold space for others so that they too can get to their soft, gooey core. Right now, the world seems like, we're so used to things being brash and loud and aggressive. But soft is that sneaky form of resistance. So whatever you're creating, whether it's campaigns or art or community, I urge you to do that with a little more tenderness and see what happens. The world doesn't need more dragons, but we do need more of us to have the courage to shed our scales. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Nammy?
She wants to know about the Bollywood dancing. Thank you. It's almost like you're an audience plant. So, funny enough, I did actually go on to become a professional Bollywood dancer well into my adulthood. But I would always feel the need to qualify it with, I'm a professional dancer on the side, okay? Because I have a real 9 to 5 job. But I became a Bollywood dancer for about 6 years in Houston. I used to perform and teach, and we used to do these like MBA halftime shows and all this stuff. So it was a lot of fun, and I loved it so much. And now I miss it. So anytime anyone wants to organize a Bollywood party, call me. So the question was, how did you help uncover those? Was there a certain prompt when people said they don't have a story? How do you help uncover their story? So one of my favorite questions to ask is, what were you like as a child? What were the things that, okay, what were your defining qualities as a kid that people would always say, oh, Nammy is going to become a dancer because she always stands by the sewing machine and gyrates when her mom's running it. So stuff like that, which is true story. So yeah, what are those things? Because invariably, the things we were as a kid are and are, our personal life always ends up informing our professional life in some way. It's always going to show up. So yeah, thank you. That was a great question. Oh, okay. What is the hardest thing for an executive to get over? Nobody knows how to tell a story. This is what I've learned. Even doing my storytelling event last week, if you ask people to tell you a story, they will give you a sales pitch or a TED talk. And I'm like, no, just tell me about a moment in time. So then I have to, you have to come up with prompts about, tell me about a time when. So I have a bunch of those in my back pocket. Okay, how long was my rewiring period after leaving my 9 to 5? I think it was ongoing, but the first time I felt it probably took, let's see, probably a year at least, where I was just trying different things and just learning. And I also read and watched a lot of self-help. I went down like a real self-help rabbit hole, including some really scammy people, but hey, it was my process.
Zip Ben up.
All right.
And then
Yeah.
zip it up.
Thank you.
One of those like wiggly come to our sale.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh, wait.
All right.
I hope this is easier than it was in my house yesterday.
Okay, so we're putting these here. Okay. All right.
You look like a sad sales inflatable man.
Is it going? Can you hear it? Yeah, it's going. Okay, good.
I look like does it blow up?
Sad
yeah.
inflatables.
I need something in my head. My head thing. There we go.
Oh my god. It's hilarious.
I can't really hear very well.